Hello, everyone. In this lecture, we shift from theoretical foundations to a global perspective on gender and sexuality. Chapter 2 introduces LGBTQ plus anthropology and explores how different cultures throughout history have understood sexuality and gender in diverse ways. Anthropology is the study of human societies and cultures. Within anthropology, sociocultural anthropology focuses on how people live, organize meaning, and create social norms. One of the primary research methods used by anthropologists is ethnography, which involves immersive study within communities in order to understand social life from the perspective of the people being studied. Using anthropological approaches allows scholars to examine sexuality and gender across cultures rather than assuming that Western understandings are universal. The chapter emphasizes that studying global sexualities helps reveal that non heteronormative identities and practices are not rare exceptions. Instead, they have played important social roles in many societies throughout history. A central argument of this chapter is that gender and sexuality do not operate in the same way everywhere. In some cultures, gender and sexuality are understood as separate categories. In others, they are deeply interconnected or even interchangeable. Additionally, not all societies organize identity around fixed labels such as lesbian, gay, or transgender. In many cultural contexts, sexuality is understood through practices, roles, or social functions rather than identity categories. Anthropological research challenges the assumption that gender exists only as a binary system of male and female. Around the world, many cultures recognize additional gender categories, sometimes described as third, fourth, or multiple genders. These identities may involve movement between genders, embodiment of more than one gender, or identification outside gender categories altogether. The chapter also examines how colonialism shaped global understandings of sexuality and gender. European colonial expansion often imposed Western religious and scientific beliefs onto indigenous societies. Practices and identities that had previously been accepted or integrated into social life were frequently labeled deviant or immoral. Colonial systems therefore contributed to the spread of homophobia and rigid gender norms in many parts of the world. Anthropologists have documented numerous culturally specific gender and sexual identities that illustrate this diversity. For example, indigenous North American traditions include two spirit identities, which challenge Western assumptions about gender by recognizing people who embody both masculine and feminine roles or occupy unique social positions within their communities. In Mexico's Zapotec culture, muxes represent another example of gender diversity. Individuals identified as muxes are typically assigned male at birth but take on social roles distinct from both men and women. Rather than fitting Western categories such as gay or transgender, mux identity reflects culturally specific understandings of gender and community participation. Across Polynesian cultures, identities such as fa, fafine, and fa attain demonstrate additional forms of gender diversity. These roles historically held recognized and meaningful social positions, though colonial influence and missionary activity often suppressed or reinterpreted them. The chapter further explores examples from Asia, including identities such as Kathy in Thailand and tomboy identities in Indonesia. These examples demonstrate that gender variance and diverse sexualities exist within local cultural frameworks that cannot always be translated accurately into Western LGBTQ plus terminology. A key lesson emphasized throughout the chapter is that applying Western identity labels globally can obscure cultural nuance. Anthropologists therefore prioritize indigenous terminology and local meanings when studying gender and sexuality. Understanding sexuality within its cultural context helps avoid imposing external assumptions or reproducing colonial perspectives. The chapter concludes by highlighting that attitudes towards same sex relationships and gender diversity have varied widely across time and place. Many societies historically accepted or even celebrated diverse sexual practices before colonial religious and political systems introduced restrictive norms. Today, globalization continues to influence how LGBTQ plus identities circulate worldwide, creating ongoing interaction between local traditions and global movements for LGBTQ plus rights. Ultimately, LGBTQ plus anthropology demonstrates that gender and sexuality are dynamic social phenomena shaped by culture, history, power, and social change. Studying global sexualities allows us to question assumptions about what is normal and to recognize the wide range of human experiences that exist across societies. As we continue in this course, this global perspective will help us understand that LGBTQ plus identities are not confined to one region or historical moment, but are part of broader patterns of human diversity.